Hello everyone, and welcome back to LUSU Elections 2013. Jolly good. We have all the candidates up on stage ready, and this is for the Vice President of Activities. This is the last position we'll be doing before the break at 5. So just like to remind candidates that you are live on Bellrig and LA1, so please do not swear, and I'd like to invite Catriona Hay up first. You have 5 minutes.
Does the mic move, or can you still hear me? Is it far away?
No, you're okay. You're good.
Good. Right. Hi, I'm Catriona Hay, and I'm running for VP Activities. It's something that I've been thinking about doing since my first year, and I've been able to see the role develop through seeing Liz working with the new sports reps and the CCOs with the new CCO activity position, and also by seeing Mark and how he changed the position when it changed to activities. Something that I know that can be a constant issue in this role is clear communication with the sports centre. Even when you put your best efforts into it, there's some things that just can't seem to get through to them. And I know that it's very important that our practice space is utilised for the clubs and societies that we have on campus. It's also essential that if efforts were to continue to get free space for the college sports teams, that that they can keep pushing this through. This way that they can use their membership fees to put towards kit and equipment, or at least decrease their membership fees. A new role in the VP activities is to organise events such as Grad Ball, Christmas Market, Campus Fest, in addition to Roses. These events are such a huge part on Lancaster University, and I want to make sure that they live up to their high expectations. Something that I would consider doing would be to move the Christmas Market back to Bonington Steps, because with the segregation of Bull and Quad and Alex Square, it just didn't have the same collective community as did the previous years. Grad Ball should be in the students' budget and should provide a range of entertainment with a buzzing atmosphere to celebrate your time at Lancaster. I'm so excited to see if it works well off campus this year and if it could possibly work again. But most importantly, Roses 2014, the 50th anniversary, at home, and it should be a massive party atmosphere and should celebrate how diverse our student population is and get as many activities and societies and clubs involved as possible, like this year with the Management Society getting involved with the promotion of it. As a member of the Activities Exec, I've been helping distribute the fundings to societies and clubs. I think it should be clear to all societies that they can get help with whatever they need, even if it's just applying for 50% of their travel expenses to get to a competition. Since I've been on a college JCR and helped organise Legends 2012, I would be able to support the sports reps in their roles, and also as inter-college sports officer, I'd be able to help the new activities CCO in their new role and how they'll be getting to grips with their new commitments. Over the past few weeks, there's been suggestion that there should be a summer inter-college sports league with a variety of sports. Suggestions that have been put forward is rugby, basketball, handball, or something completely different. Especially after a wide range of activities will be going on at Roses and the highlights of Carter Shield and the summer tournaments, there'll be a high demand for the student body to keep up their activities, even though they'll be stressing over exams. I'm Catriona Hay, and I'm running for VP Activities.
Thank you very much. Next up we have Daniel Katri.
Hi everyone, I'm Dan, and surprisingly enough, I'm running for VP Activities. In my time here at Lancaster, I've been heavily involved with the university's American football team, the Lancaster Bombers. Towards the end of my first year, I was elected social sec and subsequently president. This has given me real experience working with LUSU from a different perspective. Most of the things I've had to do as president, I was shown how to do by the previous president, and I've in turn had to pass that knowledge on to the current president. It's not an ideal way of doing things. Running more workshops to show execs how things like friend requests are dealt with, I feel would benefit the societies a lot. One of the things I'm keen to push as well is getting Lancaster sports to feel like one giant team. Over Roses weekend, you see people don the I Am Lancaster tees, people have a great weekend watching sport. It'd be great to have some of that feeling all year round. In an academic sense, the university compares itself consistently to similar-sized institutions like Bath and Durham, yet in a sporting sense, they blow us away. Yes, they have better facilities than us and have better funding, but one thing that they have established is an identity. Team Bath and Team Durham are real things and brand names that they fight under. The sports teams here at Lancaster aren't inspired by LUSU, but if we re-establish a Team Lancaster, I believe we'll see an improvement of support at home games and increase books points over the year. I want to develop better publicity for games and events. Having a featured activity of the week, I believe seeing one activity as a rallying point will see a rise in attendance in the long run for all sports and societies. Some teams have had amazing seasons, and for the most part, the only way to find out is by knowing someone who plays for one of those teams. For example, men's hockey are in a cup final, women's football are top of the league, darts won the university championship just last week. Who can honestly say they knew all those things? Groups can try their best to publicise things, but in my opinion, more promotion from the union would see a rise in attendance. For example, adding fixtures to the Pocket Lancaster app to drum up support. Pocket Lancaster app would be an easy way to give people much better access to what's going on. Another way to drum up support is consider putting on coaches to local away games, so especially for rival teams like UCLan. People like the Carter Shield and the George Wyatt Trophy, and there's always something good going on. But sometimes teams struggle for attendance. For example, only one person showed up to bowling for finesse, and we have to look at that. Students readily get involved with Legends Shield, Founders Series, and the Patriots Cup. I believe it because it has a big event feel. By holding an event over a weekend, people can still save the date, and you can condense it down to one event at a time rather than multiple. I took part in Patriots yesterday as a referee, and it was really good to see so many people involved supporting their college. The fact this event only happens once a year, I think, is what gives it more weight. I'd also like to reconsider how funding is distributed to teams and societies. Speaking to some societies over the last week, some execs don't even know what a funding request is and how to fill it out. The women's football team, for example, last year were only given £35 for the year, and as a result of an activity exec meeting. I'm not suggesting this is anyone's fault, more an overall flaw in the system. I aim to ensure that the 50th anniversary of Roses is the greatest celebration that Lancaster has to offer. Our previous home Roses was a great success due to our members. Student media was excellent at the last tournament, and I would like to work with them to push the boundaries of student sport coverage. I'd also like to be more inclusive of societies and the whole student body and turn it into more of a festival vibe. I'd have a Battle of the Bands winners from Lancaster playing at Sugar House and invite York's winners to do the same. I have more societies showcasing what they do and include at least one charity that we'd all raise money for over the weekend. Campus Fest has always been society focused, and it's a great way for societies to display their talents. But a lot can be done with sports. I'd like to see higher participation of sports teams, not just as a display, but also so people can take part. My time as president of the American football team has given me valuable experience in the day-to-day running of a society. Experience that I don't think I would have had if I instead chose to go for a CCO or JCR position. I also think that not having held a LUSU position, I have a fresh perspective and understand that for some teams, LUSU is confusing and not readily accessible. I aim to rectify this situation and chiefly develop sports, societies and events for the good of the union, the student body and Lancaster University. I am Dan Katri and I am Lancaster.
Next we have David Nelson.
Cool. Hello, my name's David Nelson and I'm standing here today as one of your candidates for VP activities. I've nominated myself for this position as I'm really passionate about my club at university. And I believe that I have something to offer for all societies, sports teams and events. I want to help expand and improve them so more students can have an improved experience as a result of being part of one of these activities. Many of my best moments at university have been with my sports team. The new skills I've learnt, places I've visited, and friends I've made. I want more people to experience this. I believe that improving the university experience has more significance for students now they are paying £9,000 tuition fees. I feel that a great way of improving the experience, you have to join a sports team society. It gives you so much more access to different things. Before I came to university, I played cricket and I played rugby union for local clubs. However, when I came here, I wanted to try something different, so I joined the Ultimate Frisbee team. I've been part of the team for the full 3 years whilst being here at Lancaster, and I've been actively running it for 2. In my second year as treasurer, and this year I'm club captain. Last year I was part of the first team when we had our most successful year ever. But off the field we also had great success when we won the LUSU Club of the Year award, as voted for by our fellow Bucks teams. This year we've also had good success on the field, reaching mixed nationals and finished 27th in the UK. I understand what it takes to run a successful sports team on and off the pitch. Therefore I've based my manifesto around this. However, I've not been part of a society at university, so to bridge this knowledge gap, I've been speaking at many societies during the last week, and I've made adjustments accordingly. All societies in the sports team put an incredible amount of work in, and yet I feel as a student body we're just simply not aware of the hard work that everyone puts in. If we were more aware of these incredible achievements made by our societies and our sports teams, I strongly believe it would create a greater cohesion within the student body. This is even more important when we have 50 Years of Roses next year. I want to increase coverage in an accessible and interactive way. Social media takes such a prominence in all of our lives, and this should be one method used to increase this coverage. However, I would also use a weekly email, similar to Squeak, however just for sports teams and societies, and I'd send it out on a different day to Squeak, so everyone's not bombarded with information. We also have fantastic tools to access information called our smartphones. So why can't we use this and the Lancaster app that is already developed to increase coverage and increase the publicity of our sports teams and societies? It'd be a simple template created where sports team society could write a few hundred words and take a picture. They could send it to Scan could approve and then upload it. For instance, when I come into university on the bus in the morning, I read the BBC Sport app or I read the BBC News app. Instead, why can't I come in and read about how our societies are hosting great events, why our sports teams are doing great things? For instance, our women's basketball team's having an incredible season. If they win the game on Wednesday against Liverpool, they'll top the league, and the week after they also have a cup final, yet no one really knows about it. And I feel this is a real great shame. However, the VP Activities role, it doesn't only incorporate clubs and societies, but it now comes with campus events. And I've experience in running events whilst at my time at university. Within the Ultimate Frisbee team, I've organised some internal competitions, but also an external competition. Last year I ran the club's annual summer tournament. However, in previous years we've failed to make more than £20 profit and attract more than 10 teams. But last year we had 20 teams and a waiting list. We made over £500 profit, we had a charity raffle, and we engaged with several more local stakeholders that we haven't reached before.
1 minute left.
Business acumen is an important part of running events. This is something which I've gained from my course, which is business studies, and 2 internships I've completed over my summer at university. In my first summer, I completed an internship in Singapore, where I organised high-level conferences across Southeast Asia. I was the company's first intern to complete their first project on time, including securing a $4,000 US sponsorship in my first month. I ran that mining conference that was held in Jakarta. I found myself constantly interacting with large multinationals and governments, mostly in Southeast Asia, but also across Australia, North America and Europe. Running these large events that I've run will give me more experience and allow me to help improve extravs, grad ball and roses. Lastly, I have passion, I have experience and I have approachability. I've made no false promises to trick you into voting for me. I'm an honest and approachable guy. If elected, I do everything I could to help your sports team or society. Thank you very much.
Next we have Ellie Sutherland.
Hi, I'm Ellie Sutherland, also obviously running for VP Activities. I decided to put my name forward for this as I feel like I have the passion, drive and the experience to be the perfect candidate for this job. I've been involved with LUSU quite a lot since coming to this uni. I've been on JCRs as sports sec and president, and I was also the inter-college sports officer in my second year. I've also been involved with the women's rugby club since my first year, this year becoming captain. Being captain has made me have to develop my leadership skills, which I feel have come across really well, as we are now top of the league and we are undefeated. It's also helped my organisation skills, as I have to organise training, I have to organise the teams and make sure we're all getting to where we need to be. As inter-college sports officer and a sports secretary, I've been to Carter Shield basically since my first year every week. It's been changed quite a bit this year, and I think it's a lot better now that it's only on every second weekend rather than every other weekend. However, I feel that it can be pushed further. The people that already come down to Carter Shield all really enjoy it, so I don't see why we need to cut it. If LUSU can just help out with the sports secs, with promoting it and get everybody down. I mean, when I was sports secretary, I had people messaging me coming down for just one sport. I think this could be achieved by maybe offering incentives for coming down to the Carter Shield. So giving people, this year I know they gave the opportunity to win free sugar entry for 5 people plus 1. But I think that it needs to be further, so a competition perhaps with, if you come down to the most Carter Shields, then you get entered into a draw to win something. With event management, obviously this year having to oversee the Campus Fest, Christmas Market and Grad Ball as well as Roses, I feel that I've got quite a lot of experience within event management. I've organised big events such as proms prior to coming to university, and since being at university I've been on 2 Extrav committees, I've helped out with Legends in 2011 and 2012. I think that the Christmas Market would be best moved back to Bonington Steps, possibly with it carrying on all the way up to Alex Square with stalls and things that people can buy. Also getting societies involved with that and so they can promote themselves. Campus Fest has always been a great event. I've been going to Campus Fest since my first year, so I think that needs to just carry on and just be bigger and better every year. The societies that all take part in Campus Fest all do a really good job, and I think that needs to be pushed further to get an even bigger turnout. With Grad Ball this year being moved to Blackpool Tower, it will give everybody an opportunity to see whether they prefer it on campus or off campus. If I get the role as VP Activities, I'd like to create a really big poll and just see whether people preferred the fact that it was off campus in a nicer venue or whether they preferred it to be back on campus. I do this by generating information through Facebook, Twitter and emails, just so then that we can reach as many people as possible, as I feel the poll this year didn't reach as many people as it maybe should have. Roses is obviously a really big event, with it being the 50th anniversary especially, and it being a home Roses. I was on the Roses exec last year, so I'm aware of how much planning, how much time it takes to plan a home Roses. With the publicity drive being really big, I think that we can do that again, with interviews with spectators, participants, just general people in the lead up to Roses, as well as on the weekend itself. I'd also like to suggest a wristband system if people can gain wristbands from going to spectator sport, and the wristbands can then get you cheaper entry into sugar or just some offers, as well as working with bars around town to get some cheaper drink offers there so that people can really have a great weekend about it. Finally, I'd like to help sports and societies with everything that they need, such from funding to coaching applications, as I know I really struggled this year as we had to then find a coach for ourselves. Also helping the sports reps with Legends, Founders and Patriots. So I'd like to spend another year here doing what I feel I do best. Thank you.
Thank you, and we now have Emily Pollitt.
during my 3 years at Lancaster, I have seen firsthand the brilliant things sports, societies and LUSU can do. As captain of Furness Netball B team, I saw how enjoyable inter-college sport can be. As president of Blue Dance, I know how wonderful it can be when societies put on truly special events. And as CCO activities, I've experienced the hard work necessary to make big events happen and know what great resources are available to clubs and societies. But through all this, I've seen the not so brilliant. Society's constant struggle for space and resources, sports club successes marred by dwindling support, and year after year, students feeling that their special night, grad ball, isn't as special as they hoped it would be. This year, we have the opportunity to really change things. For the first time, there can be joined up thinking between clubs, societies and events to give students the activities they really want. But for that to happen, there needs to be someone who is passionate about all areas of the job and who has the vision to see how they all fit together. It's a vision that knows every student counts, which is easy to say, but is key in developing and improving what we do. It is a vision I want to get on with. The events we offer students are fantastic, but I want to see LUSU doing more than offering. I want to see us working with students. I want to introduce open forums for creating events, so any student can have a say in what LUSU is planning, not just those fortunate enough to know an officer. The amount of creativity in our student body is amazing. There's probably a student out there with the best idea for promoting events that we don't know about. I want to nurture this creativity and help great students with great ideas help us to put on amazing events, especially the 50th Roses. This same creativity I want to see in Freshers Week, not separating out JCR events and clubs and societies, but bringing them together to create an engaging and exciting Freshers Week for students new and old. I don't want new students' first experience of our clubs and societies to be a crammed stall at Freshers Fair, or a give-it-to-go event that has to compete with big nights out. These groups are too important to try and cram in between everything else. I know from my own experience that people don't always make friends straight away, and if I hadn't joined my society, then my university experience would be very different. So I want to see societies being part of the entertainment we offer new students, so you can see them first at their very best. And whilst I still want people to give it a go, it should be later in the year, when students have time to really throw themselves into something and make new friends. Getting students excited about our group shouldn't just happen in the first week of term. I would make use of the resources LUSU already has to publicise our sports matches and society events throughout the year. It needs to be easier to find clubs and societies on the activities website, with contact details that actually work. We should be using Squeak's high readership to show off the achievements of our groups, or even giving them a newsletter of their own so students always know exactly what's going on. And the Pocket Lancaster calendar should be promoted as somewhere where students can find out when the next big books game is and what Sugar is offering to supporters who want to turn an afternoon of support into an evening of celebration. This is vital because the louder students support our clubs and societies, the louder LUSU's voice can be when arguing their case to the university. Students shouldn't have to compete to use university resources like the Sports Centre. The voice of clubs and societies within LUSU could also be better heard if we made more effective use of Activities Council, meeting more often and debating issues, generating policy that actually impacts on student groups. Engagement is vital at all levels. This goes for inter-college sport too. The Card Shield is a fantastic tradition, but no longer achieves what it should. I want to see it being a big date in the Lancaster calendar, reigniting inter-college rivalry. I believe moving it to the summer term would allow more time to build up hype and make it something students really get excited about. I also see it as part of a campaign promoting the benefits of sport in driving down stress, especially when our exams are looming. For now, though, the end of my time is looming. There is so much more I have to say, which will have to wait till questions. I've only just scratched the surface of what I want to get on with. Essentially, it is a LUSU that creates the best events, driven by the ideas and passions of students. A LUSU that celebrates sport, from an arm wrestle at Patriots to the rugby first at Roses. And a LUSU that cherishes every society, whether it has 150 members or just 15. So for someone who will get on it, vote Pollitt, #1 for Vice President Activities. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Right, we're now taking questions from the floor. Go Liz first.
Hi candidates, just well done for everyone for putting your name down. I know for everyone here it can be really daunting to run, and well done for standing up there and giving your speeches. Just now we had obviously the EWD candidates, and from that I'd just like to highlight the fact that it appears very few people know about the cultural societies that we've got on campus. The two that were mentioned were obviously Islamic Society, and they spoke about not conference centre, I was going to say which one. The chaplaincy, sorry. And people don't seem to know what's going on. I've got to say that one of the best events I've gone to this year was Diwali. I thought that was absolutely amazing. I also, obviously, Islamic week last week, I spoke to some people after that, and it was brilliant. And it was nice to see one of my friends who's doing a dissertation on some of the issues around Islam go to that. How do you think you can publicise these groups? Because I see the CSSA, which is the Chinese Society, more than probably any other group, but it appears it's not, that message isn't getting down to this room, because even people here who are the most engaged students don't realise just how active these groups are, which I've seen they are. They're not quiet groups who don't know where to turn. I've seen far from that. A lot of them are working with involved teaching Hindu. I went along to an event and learnt Hindu with some of the Indian Society and the Hindu Society. How do you feel that you can help promote these events for those students who are already engaged in LUSU?
Okay, can that question first go to Catriona, please?
To be honest, the only reason I found out about Diwali was because they were applying for funding and we heard about it on Activities Exec. I think if there was a bigger outreach, I know a lot of people are bombarded with events and Facebook notifications and trying to basically engage people into what's going on with their society. But if there was a way that we could, I know flyering is not the best way, but face-to-face contact, I think, is probably the way forward, because people are more likely to remember something that's happened to them than something they've just seen on the internet and can click onto the next page. So, yeah, face-to-face interaction.
Okay, thank you. Can we next go to Dan, please?
Hello. I think something like that is a good example of what my thing about featuring activities group on a weekly basis kind of gets across. So you feature a society that's doing something big, or if they're doing like a charity event, you can feature it and make sure it's really visible. So normally there's not going to be more than one or two of those a week. So Diwali is obviously a big thing for Indian people. I'm half Indian as well, so I know a little bit about that. But yeah, so I think featuring it and having like one marquee event every week would really, really increase the visibility of it.
Okay, thank you. Can we go to David next, please?
Liz, was it how would they interact with LUSU, or how would they interact with more students? When you said how would we reach them, as in how would we as VP activities, or how would they reach the students? Okay. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, so for everyone on LA1 TV in Belrig, that was how do you publicise these events that they're putting on to other students?
Okay. Yeah, I went and I've met with the CSSA, and I've met with the Chinese Society, and I met with the CU this last week. So speaking to them about those same issues, and they were speaking to me about that. The CSSA had a big paintball event they were holding this morning, and they were saying to me that they were struggling to get out there and reach it. They were trying to do it through Facebook, and they've done posters. And the posters they had, I saw the posters when they showed me one. I was like, oh, that's what that event was. So what I want to do is give more training to the execs. The training you did for captain and presidents was good. Everyone can get even more training in there. We've got a really award-winning marketing department, so why can't they come down and give some training about society as to how to better reach them? So if we better train the execs, allow them to provide them with more tools that LUSU has and the university has as a whole, then they can reach more students, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. Then can we go to Ellie, please?
As when I was on the FARD JCR, we ran an event, FARD Goes Global, which actually saw quite a large turnout. I think those events sort of need to be bigger, so campus-wide, not just for one college. So I think we can do that by, it is just publicising everywhere, really. I don't often see a lot Again, like Catriona said, the only reason I knew about Diwali was actually because you told me, Liz. So I think that these events need to just be pushed further and just going out, talking to people, because Facebook is just, you're overrun with things on Facebook these days. But also the Chinese New Year event that we has been held in Fylde for the past 2 years, also with Finesse.
15 seconds.
Yeah, just events sort of such as that can be spread throughout campus and not just in one college.
Thank you. And finally, Emily.
Yeah, I think social media goes without saying. Yes, people do get poster blind, people see too much on Facebook, but essentially sometimes that is where you have to start. But I think now the role's integrated with events, that gives us a really good opportunity to really promote these faith societies. I mentioned it in my hust about Freshers Week, and really from the very beginning making sure that societies are known, maybe integrating them with events that JCR's put on for the freshers. But with the remit involving events as well, I'd be interested in putting on a campus-wide culture fest. There are a lot of little, not little events, but events within certain colleges, like the Chinese New Year and things like that. But why can't we have a festival like Winterfest, but that focuses on all different cultures and really promote it throughout campus to make sure that everyone knows how many different cultures we have on campus, and not just the ones that spring to your mind immediately, like Indian or Chinese, but there's a lot of Norwegian students, people from Greece, things like that, and I think we should bring them all together in a big festival.
Okay, thank you. Next question's going over here.
Hi, good afternoon. Some of you have mentioned Carter Shield in your speeches, and if not, some of you have mentioned it in your manifestos. I'm Pendle Sports Rep, and Carter Shield is something that I'm truly passionate about. It is mentioned every year about trying to change Carter Shield. I have been in attendance for Carter Shield for the past 2 years, and I have not seen most of you there before. If you haven't been there, have you actually spoken to sports reps about how you can help them instead of just insulting it? And how can you talk about changing something that you barely know anything about and you've not been in attendance?
Okay, thank you. Can that question first go to Emily, please?
Quite freely say that in the first 2 years of my university life, I didn't go to Carter Shield, and that's because I didn't know what it was. My JCR, I'm not saying it was essentially their fault, but I didn't know what Carter Shield was, and therefore I couldn't take part. Getting more involved in LUSU in my 3rd year, I have been down. I haven't spoken to sports reps, no, because I don't think it's just up to them. I think student consultation on a wider basis is needed, and I think it's great that the people that go every week are passionate, but that's not essentially what it's about. We need to look at involving more students and not keeping it to that small base.
Okay, thank you. And next to Ellie, please.
Almost every Carter Shield. Being inter-college sports officer last year, I saw sort of the troubles that a lot of sports sects had with getting people down. I mean, often we didn't have teams. So I think working with the sports reps, having been one of them myself as well, I know that they do need help with getting the participation, but I really think it's a great event, so I don't think it should be changed that much. Just making sure that the sports reps have that help with it.
Okay, thank you. Next to David, please.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, I haven't been down much to Carter Shield. There's 2 real reasons. One is we at Frisbee play weekend tournaments, so I'm not in Lancaster. And I also train like 4 times a week, and I think it must be the same for other sports teams. When we train 4 times a week, I prioritise my society over some of the Carter Shield. I have been down to the Frisbee ones with the Carter Shield, and I think with what I'd like to see with the Carter Shield is consultations not only with the actual colleges and the sports reps, but with the actual societies. So like with the Frisbee team, if you came to us beforehand and be like, we want to do with Carter Shield, what are we going to do? Because some of the rules weren't right, and we could make it a better event. So I think if you engage the societies, and the sports teams, that the sport's about, I think that would help improve the event.
Thank you. Dan?
Personally, I haven't been able to be that involved with Carter Shield because I have American football commitments of a Sunday. Our games are all Sundays, and we have a 4-hour training session of a Sunday. So it's hard for me to miss training or miss a game for a Carter Shield event. In my first year, I went down to some of it, and it was good fun. Last year, participation died off. I went to one weekend last year. That's why I think having it as smaller, less events, but bigger ones would make it better, because stuff like the Patriots and the Legends are really well attended. I think if you give the Cart Shield more of that kind of vibe, people might be more encouraged to go down.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Catriona.
To be honest, I think the improvement of Carter Shield this year has been exponential. Far more teams have been able to get down, more colleges. I mean, even grad has been well committed to getting a team down to as many events as possible. I know that a lot of people think Carter Shield, is just part of the FTO Hustings drinking game. But it's something that I've been involved with since my first year, and I personally really enjoy it. And if more people were able to get down and see how much fun it can actually be, even if it's just, you're a little bit hungover and want to run around for a little bit to get rid of it. I mean, you get to meet so many people from other colleges.
10 seconds.
And yeah, I was sports rep for my college and now inter-college sports rep, so I can see a lot of improvement on it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Right, for everyone who's got their hand up, this is the order I've got the questions to go in from now. I've got Rebecca, Nobes, Becky Cook, Liz, Steve, Dan Sean, guy in the middle table, guy in the far left table, and Simon. So you guys can all put your hands down for now. Right, so next we're going to Becky Nobes.
In general, the HUST were really sports related, with some events sort of thrown in on the side, and there was very little in general about societies. Can you each give 2 specifically society related policies, please?
Okay, and can that go to Dan first, please?
For societies, I want to increase visibility of their events. So there are groups that put on like big charity events and fundraisers. So making those more visible would not only make the society make it a better event, but it would also raise more money for charity. And then as well as that, the exec training, it applies to both. Societies still need to know what they need to do to keep it running. So I think the exec training would be really valuable for both sports and societies.
Okay, thank you. Next to David, please.
Yeah, 2 things I'd look at doing. Similar to Dan, like sports team societies. Sports team is a society apart from they play regularly fixtures and they train regularly. Societies do things regularly as well. So I haven't got 2 specific ones because I've got policies I think can go to both of them. One is training. So I mentioned with publicising, with doing something with publicity officer. Why can't we have training for treasurers? I know someone I spoke to on the society that there was a treasurer and didn't really know much what to do, and she hadn't given any training. So I'd like to produce something called an exec manual, just laying down lots of support and the funding that's available, and give that both out to exec sports teams and societies before term starts, and publicising events as well. I went and spoke to EDSOC, and they had a problem where they put an event on with Teach First, and they were struggling to get enough people there.
10 seconds.
And I don't think it's fully their fault, and if we give more training, then hopefully more societies can get more people turned to their events.
Thank you. Next to Catriona, please.
One thing that I think is very important that all societies and clubs need to know is how they can sustain their club, because many societies come to activities exec for funding, but if you're not putting any money towards your own event, you're probably not going to get as much given back to you. So I think if societies are aware that even if it's just a small membership fee that can get you through the year, an annual turnover, just to help them get through the year, put on their events. Also, I think I joined Glee Society this year, and even though I didn't really have enough time to do it, I was aware that they were taking part in the Thanksgiving, doing a charity event for WaterAid. But I think if there's a larger outreach for events that can be enjoyable for everyone that's taking part and watching, then that'd be Yeah, 10 seconds up. Yeah.
Emily, please, next, sorry.
I think it's really important that, although I think everyone's talked about sports and societies, the role is now sort of like, I think especially holistic in that they can't particularly be separated, and a lot of the times they do have the same needs. Society-wise, though, I'd be really interested in setting up something perhaps on the website where people can sort of enter what they're interested in, and it might generate a society for them to try. So you could perhaps have groups of societies and you could ask them what their main interests are, what type of society they'd like to try, and then that would provide a platform for people to find out about societies they may not already know about. And also, with the LUSU report on the space that's suitable for the Students' Union, that's a really hard-hitting report about why the LUSU building at the moment under SPA isn't suitable, and I don't see why in the role we could put together a report about the space that societies have available, because at the moment it's still not suitable, even though there's been pushes for it before.
Thank you. And Ellie, please.
Like David and Emily have said, I think that it's really hard to distinguish between a sport and a society, because at the end of the day, a sport is a society. But I think that all the societies need to be made more aware of the funding and the help that they can get from LUSU. So I'd aim to sort of make sure that they all are well aware that they can get that. Also, I'd like to... Oh, God, on my head now. I'd like to help them with their events, with the publicity, like we were talking earlier about sort of the cultural events that don't get that much attendance. I'd like to really help with that and just push it, because the outreach from LUSU is obviously going to be bigger than the outreach that a single society has.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from Becky Cook, please. Becky, can you put your hand up so Laurie knows where you are? Thank you.
Thank you. This might be controversial, I don't know, but something that the whistleblower did really well was having a lot of pages, having a lot of pages about societies, about sport, and about different groups on campus. So my question is, what would you do to work with student media and to work with the Vice President, Campaigns and Communications within your role?
If that can go to Ellie first, please.
Yeah, well, I think that all the sports and societies do need to be covered more. I know that even members of sports teams are now working alongside SCAN. I mean, the women's rugby team got an article in SCAN this week just gone. So I think working alongside them and making sure that it's sort of an even spread of who gets covered, because a lot of the time the coverage on sports is pretty much the same team sort of over and over again. But I think that that needs to be spread out and make sure that the societies, so maybe even just something on LA1, if a society is holding a big event, then LA1 can go down, do a little interview about what they're doing and why.
Okay, thank you. And now to Catriona, please.
I agree with Ellie. We've had a write-up of the women's rugby that she said just gone, and we've got another one coming out soon. But I think if all societies and clubs were aware that they can essentially make their own publicity, if they can go to Bailrig, maybe do an interview with one of their hosts, or potentially talk to LA1 TV, maybe do like a question of sport type thing again, and really publicise their own activity. Also, completely blanked now. Oh, balls. I know, it's gone. It's gone. It's completely gone.
Thank you. Emily?
Yeah, with campaigns and communications, I did touch upon it in my hust. I think a campaign about the benefits of sport and society involvement would be really beneficial. Obviously, it can take the stress out of studying and things like that, but also just to make friends and feel like part of the Lancaster environment. Regarding the student media as a whole, obviously not on such a large scale, but they do roses so well, and it seems a shame that not all societies and sports teams can involve them in that way for other things. We had a rugby versus dance event, and LA1 broadcast that, which is well recorded it, which was absolutely brilliant. So I just think it's finding that balance of supporting them within their means as well.
Thank you. And to David, please.
Yeah, I think we've come from Ultimate Frisbee. We're not a major sport. We're not getting people just coming in because they want to play football, they want to play rugby. So understand it's difficult to get people there and keep them coming down. A lot of people want to play Patriots, or maybe they played Carter Shield, have come up to us and said, oh, it's great fun, I want to come down. So I think to do that, if the events and the societies and sports teams are published further, then that's going to help with that. So I touched on in my speech just about using the Lancaster app. I really feel that if you're delegating out to the sports team societies to write up a little bit themselves about the event they did, or they write up about a fixture they just played, and maybe add a picture to that, and you send that over a Scan. So Scan don't have to do all the work themselves. It's impossible to say you can cover everybody, because it's just not possible. By getting the sports team societies to themselves write something up and send it to Scan, they can give themselves greater coverage. And include that as well in a weekly email, and with college sports you can maybe increase some stats and different things about that, goal scorers, most points and so on for different sports. That'd be nice to see.
And now to Dan, please.
I think part of when you do exec training for people, letting them know that they have access to some award-winning student media. We've got Scan, LA1 TV and Bellrig that all do a really, really good job. I think it's not always obvious to execs that they can approach them and say, oh, we're putting this on, can you help us promote it? Because it will help. And then as far as making things more visible as well, improving the website, because at the moment, the activities section of the website, it's not very good. Can't always find the societies to get in touch with, can't always find contact details. So I think improving that, because people do look online at things, so basically making it easier for people to get access to the information they want.
Yep, okay. Next question is from Liz. Please, Laurie.
Hi again. So I'll try and keep this quickly, but I need to explain it first. Obviously, we've touched on things like Carter Shield, which I don't blame any of you for not getting down there, because I can't even get my own sports reps down there every week. It's one thing I'd like to start with, happy and cheery. Another thing, which further expanding on that, is one of the worst parts of my job. I absolutely love it, and I will never have a job as good as this one, so I'm very excited for you all, is apathy. Students are very apathetic when it comes to advertising things, when it comes to getting involved with things, when it comes to saying, you can put this out there through this, and then they don't jump on board with it. And one of the most difficult parts of my job, which I didn't think I'd be facing, was dealing with the sports centre and the university in particular. One of the things that I've been dealing with, I know Beck's covered societies, which is something that I wanted to ask you all about, and societies really is dealt with from the LUSU bunker in my department, which is great that we can deal with them on a day-to-day basis. But when it comes to things like the access that sports teams have to the grass pitches, that's weather dependent, and it's dependent on the groundsman. When it comes to training times in the sports hall, I'm not permitted to give these out whenever I want to, because obviously the university is able to be accessed by the local community. I just wanted to find out how you guys would deal with driving this forward, because at the moment I'm having monthly meetings with the head of facilities, the sports centre as well, on how we can drive and improve sport, because we've had this new £17 million sports centre and there's been no real added benefit for students. Is this something that you've thought about, and how would you help improve it? Sorry, it's a difficult question.
Okay, can we go to David first on that one, please?
I spoke to a few of the different teams and many of them do have different problems with the sports centre. I only have a minute, so I'll just touch on one. With the women's hockey, say, and the table tennis. Women's hockey have some big heavy nets they tell them to take out. They've got 1 hour, and they say the sports centre staff watch them struggle to take them out, struggle to take them back in. And the table tennis guys say, we've got our nets, they put them in these little cases, they put them away in a box, and the sports centre staff just take them out. So I suppose really talking to the sports centre, I think we've got to try and legitimise their view. Why have they got this current attitude where sometimes we feel that they're against us and not with us? We're going down there, using their facilities, members go in, pay gym membership, give them money, and we really need to be working with them. So just the beginning of as soon as they start, would just be one of the first things to do, just meet with them, talk to them, and you've got to speak through these issues, because unless we're trying to interact with them, we can't do anything to solve it.
Emily?
I think a good way to approach this is that look at the fact that the university, they like a good reputation, And I think it'd be really key for us to argue the case of saying, this is how good our sports teams can be, this is how good they are already. We can make them better with more access to the sports centre and more facilities available to us. And that will play on their sort of, they want to look good elsewhere. I think someone touched upon it in their hust that there's other universities that are sort of equal to us, but their sports is much better. So we need to sort of like hit that soft spot in the university. Equally, I think it'd be a good idea to work with the sports development officer at the sports centre further. I know that Liz has already been doing that, but to really push that and ensure that she sees the benefits that could come from more access.
10 seconds. Oh. Ellie?
Yeah, I'm not sure sort of how far you can go, because as you say, you're having monthly meetings about it and it's not really changing that much. So it'd just be to continue what you've already started and continue pushing them to see if we can get it to be more student friendly. I know personally we've struggled with space because if the pitches are frozen then we can't use them and then we've got nowhere to train. But also, like Emily said, we, using the sports development officer, personally I've set up a meeting with the sports development officer, and I think that should be done, sort of all the clubs should be pushed to do that, so then we can all attempt to get sort of better usage of the sports facilities that we've got.
Thank you. Catriona?
Even though I really enjoyed Carter Shield, if it doesn't improve with participation and the hype of inter-college sport, there is the opportunity that you could completely scrap it for the first 2 terms and move it, and use that Sunday space to help out the teams and societies. However, it would definitely depend on whether or not the sport officers would feel that their college wasn't getting involved enough with the Carter Shield. I know that it's not just clubs and societies that struggle with space. A lot of people that have gym memberships struggle to get into the classes or struggle to go to the gym just because it's not as student friendly as it should be. I know York, their students love their new facility that they just got, and we should maximise that.
Thank you. And Dan?
I think carrying on the work that Liz has been doing would be a main priority, just because it's not as simple as just telling the sports centre we want all this time, because it is effectively its own company that is just on campus. So explaining to them that we have all these societies and all these sports that need the time in the gym, and trying to push more of a student focus for them, because from people I've spoken to, it feels like it's just a public gym on campus, which it kind of is, but it shouldn't feel that way. It should feel like a student gym. It bears the Lancaster Uni name, so it should represent Lancaster Uni rather than just being a Lancaster sports centre.
Thanks very much. Right, our next question is from Steve.
Hi, candidates. As I warned, I'm going to be asking a couple of questions throughout the Hustings about the strategic plan. So my first question to you guys is, where do you think you, as Vice President Activities, would fit into our union strategy?
Okay, and if that can first go to Catriona, please.
I believe that I've got qualities and passion that can fit into working with the Students' Union and hopefully facilitating the potential move of space and making it aware to the student body that they can find us in the potential space in Bowland. But also that the societies and clubs know that if they have certain issues with space or funding, that they can come into the new building and find the help that they need.
Okay, Dan?
With the strategic plan, a big part of it is the student experience. I feel I'd have to be pushing for more involvement in activities, because for a lot of people, the activities and societies they join at uni can be what defines their experience. I know that if I hadn't joined American football, my university experience would have been completely different. So I think that's one of the big things I'd be looking to push.
Okay, thank you. David?
Yeah, there's a part right near the end, I can't quite remember the exact wording, but it's something about working for you and improving you and your experience. And that's what I touched on my hust, is part of mine, what Dan just said, is our experience has been with our clubs and societies, but making sure we're through better publicity, more people know about this, so they have more access to join them. Because if students aren't joining sports team societies, maybe they don't get on with their housemates so much, and then they're isolated slightly. However, if they joined a sports team or a society, and there's so many out there, then they could help their experience by simply knowing more people that have similar interests to them.
Okay, thank you. Ellie?
Yep, I'd like to basically work on the student experience because obviously now it's up to £9,000 fees. You really want to get the best out of your time at university. And at the end of the day, being part of the FTA team means you are sort of acting on behalf, you're representing the student body. So we need to make sure that the whole student body are able to get the same experience that I know myself, I've had a great experience, so I want the whole student body to get that as well.
Thank you. And Emily?
From the strategic plan, I pinpointed like 3 key things that I thought were relevant. The first one was it's called the killer question, and it's about whether LUSU has a positive impact on your student experience. And I think that's something that, working with the rest of the full-time officer team, we should continue to look at and make sure that the answer to that is yes. Another thing was that in the strategic plan it was promised that space would be improved for the society use, and personally I don't think that's made any progress, and so as I've touched upon before, that's something that I'd really want to work upon. I'm sure everyone says it, but having seen the successes over the years with the LUSU move to Poland, I think that's something we can definitely work upon. And the other thing was ground level. It talks about talking to students at ground level and really getting out and speaking to them. And I think in areas of that, such as democracy, obviously the democracy cow's been out in the square and people have been talking about that. But I do think with the remit of activities, student consultation stops after election period, and that's something I'd want to carry on.
Thank you. Steve, your second question.
Thank you very much, guys. My next question, and I'm sorry for this because Twitter is screaming out to hear less and less about sport, so bear that in mind for the future questions. But one thing I want to ask you is, what do you think about the NUS's research into out in sport, and do you think that it's a good idea to have a welfare officer in every activity group exec?
Can that go to Dan first, please?
I think the out in sport campaign is a really good thing. It's something that we should definitely be getting behind. It's an equality measure, basically. But I don't think necessarily that every society needs a welfare officer. Some teams might feel that members of their societies would benefit from it. But personally, being part of the American Football Society, and I just meant to mention sport, but I don't think that there's any real welfare issues that would have been solved any easier by having a welfare officer on the exec as well. And in a way, it can just complicate things even more, because then you've got another exec role that you need to kind of make sure they're trained on, and having someone else running the club.
Okay, thank you. David?
So for instance, with Frisbee this year, what we did is we always have a large intake of freshers, and we look at always trying to retain them. We go away and do beginners tournaments where we have some beginners, some experienced players at the same time. And what we did when we went to these tournaments is we'd have several, myself and maybe 1 or 2 other exec members would go along, and we'd like divide up the freshers. We'd like make sure we were really interacting with a certain group of them. I'd be speaking to these 3, another one would be speaking to the other 3. So I don't think you need a welfare officer in there. If you have something where you've really thought through about it, that we're making sure that we're really speaking to these people, interacting with them, trying to make sure they stay within our society. So I don't know if you need a welfare officer, but you do need to think about people's needs when they're coming into your society, especially when they're freshers.
Okay, thank you. And can we go to Catriona next, please?
I don't believe that it's necessary for there to be a welfare officer on every exec. However, if the society feels that it would be beneficial to them, then I don't see why not. But I know from experience on women's rugby, we have a fresher rep, which basically acts as a voice for the new members of the team, so in case they have any issues or problems, that they can go to them and it can be brought to the exec members' attention and it can be solved through that way. What was the other half of the question? Okay. Women's rugby, you know, it's very, it's, you
10
know.
seconds.
But proud, why not? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Emily?
I think it's natural to say that the Out in Sport campaign is something that we should all focus upon, and I'd hopefully obviously work with VP Campaigns and Communications to ensure that was a campus-wide campaign, not just in sports teams and societies. With regard to a welfare officer in every exec, I do think that's a little bit over-ambitious, and I also think it could potentially be perceived as patronising, as though an exec can't handle things like that on their own. However, I would like to see perhaps a categorisation of different societies and sports teams and having a welfare representative for each category, which could then feed into the VP Welfare and Community and EWD Council as well.
Thank you. And to Ellie, please.
Okay, like Emily said, it is quite ambitious to suggest a welfare officer in every sports team or society. I don't think you need it, but I think some sports or societies might benefit from having one. However, it then gets to the stage where it feels like you're talking to an officer, whereas a lot of the time in these societies, they're your friends, so you're more speaking to them. If you've got any troubles or something, you're speaking to them as a friend rather than as a welfare officer. I think putting that title on it might sort of make people shy away a little bit, as if it's like a person in an authority, whereas all they want to chat to is like their friends.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is Dan Sean, please. Also, just to note, everybody, this will have to finish in 15 minutes due to the catering needing to set up for the catered accommodation students. So if you've got questions, I'm afraid you'll have to ask the candidates after they've finished. Dan?
Hi guys, sorry to everyone who's listening. I don't use Twitter, so I didn't know about this outrage about sport. Dan, you noted the recent darts success, which was great. For those of you who don't know, the darts team have won the Cup 5 out of the last 6 times, and 2 Lancaster students are seeded number 1 and number 2 in the country for current uni students. Why do you think they have had such a success, and how do you think you can help bring this success to other sports and also societies?
Okay, can that go to Emily first, please?
Repeat the first part of the question, sorry.
The darts team have won the Cup 5 out of 6 times. How do you think you could bring this success to other sports and also societies?
I think initially the most important thing is I think we've all mentioned it, but to make sure that sports teams and societies know that there's support available. So there is funds available for external coaches and support to go to tournaments and things like that. So I think that would be key in ensuring success. And just general support and building that hype up around things like the darts tournament and things like that.
Okay, thank you. Ellie?
I think one of the big reasons they've had such success is because there's so many people committed to darts, and because we have the college leagues, I think that really helps them out, and that's why they've had such big success with that. With regards to other sports and societies, a lot of the time, you know, you do want to win, but a lot of the time it's just you just play for fun. Like I know a lot of us do, but it's all about gathering new members, because if you've got a big enough squad or a big enough society, you're most likely going to do better. So I think helping the execs with gathering new members at the start of the year would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you. David?
Yeah, I think with the darts team, I was speaking to someone at Patriots last night about this, and part of it is because of the access they have. So, as we mentioned about the college league, the fact that players can really get access to boards to play darts and just to get training, rather than, if you look at the other teams, we don't have the regular access the darts players have. So that's one of the reasons with those. And I think it's seen well with the darts. You know, it's fun to go down with your college and you can get more competitive. They've got roses, you know, they've got the college leagues. They're regularly competing. So not only do they get to practice, but they get to practice a lot under competition.
Thank you. Dan?
I think having the George Wyatt Trophy really helps kind of promote darts anyway. So like you got people playing college darts every week, training every week, and it's a bit more of a casual sport, so you can go down in between lectures, play a bit. So it gives people a bit more training time. But as well, I think one of the big things that helps with darts is the atmosphere around it. Like I was at Rose's Darts here last year, and the atmosphere is really good for darts. It's a really good laugh, and it's I suppose part of it being indoors means people are more likely to come down, have a couple of beers, and watch it really. And I think that's one of the big reasons that darts has been so successful. Promoting sport, I think, well, I'd like to think would help make other sports successful as well, because having support from the sideline is really important.
Okay, thank you. And to Catriona, please.
I think it would be a shame to say that other societies and sports teams aren't as successful, because I know many teams are top of their Bucks League at the moment and playing well. However, I do think darts do have an advantage with their accessibility to darts boards and regular matches. But I think other societies could just be as beneficial if they reached out to LUSU and asked for help. You can get so much just from asking. You can get half your transport, entries, fees to competitions. Even if it's just, actually we need 1 more hour just this week before our tournament to get some practice, they will try their absolute best to get it for you. So yeah, I just think regular support and accessibility from you, LUSU.
It's time, thank you. If we can now go to Nick, please. Where is Laurie? Nick's in the middle.
Thank you very much. Bucks sports teams currently get significantly more funding than other societies, though there are many less people involved in these. Do you think this is right?
Right, okay, thank you. And can that go to Dan first, please?
Not necessarily, no. I think the size of the society should have an impact on how much funding it gets. There's no point giving thousands of pounds to a society when it's only going to benefit 3 or 4 people. But I think the big things with Bucks is they're representing the university. So it's understandable that the university wants them to do well, and LUSU are more likely to give them funds. It's not necessarily right, but it's what happens. I think making it clear to bigger societies that the funding is there for things that they want to put on would be a really big advantage.
Okay, thank you. And then to David, please.
Yeah, I don't think it's right that you don't automatically give all the funding to the Bucks sports teams, because everyone needs funding other societies to promote themselves. At Frisbee, we get Bucks funding for 2 tournaments a year. The rest we have to do with members. So I know being treasurer, getting money off people is difficult, and supporting it yourself is also something that means people then can't go to tournaments. But I think the thing with funding is if I've spoke to quite a few execs and they just don't have any knowledge about where to get funding from, how to get funding from. So I think on the funding side, Dan's saying you've got to give money to the sports teams to represent the university in Bucks. But with other societies and other sports teams who aren't in Bucks, if they're better informed because they're better trained at the beginning of the year, because they have this, like when I said, an exec manual at the beginning, then I think then they have the opportunity themselves to apply for funding and get better funding that way.
Thank you. Catriona?
On LUSU Activities Exec, there's so much money left over from this year's budget for the funding for societies and clubs. Awareness is key. If societies are aware that they can apply for funding to help themselves, even like when we look at the form, if they're applying for like 20 quid, but it's going to benefit almost 100 people, they're going to be more inclined to give you the money because it's going to help so many members of your society. I do agree that the university does want their students to represent and show that we are a collective group that can actually have good performance in the Bucks leagues, but also LUSU do pay for their entry fee into that league as well as their travel.
That's time. Emily?
Obviously, I agree it's important that books are represented in the university, but I think it's also important to realise that there are a lot of societies that represent the university, not just in sports leagues. We've had a funding application for the United Nations Society to go to a big conference in London, and that's representing the university as well. Regarding funding, from sitting on activities exec, I think it's important not to presume that books need more funding. I think it's particularly important to look at the funding applications as they come in and consider them then at that level, because we get a lot in from societies as well as books teams. So I think it should all be relevant to what it's needed for.
Thank you, and to Ellie, please.
Yeah, like they've all said, I don't think it is right that books teams do get more funding. I also don't think it's always the case. I mean, with women's rugby, we don't have a lot of funding from LUSU. We've sort of paid for coaches and referees out of our club budget and sort of out of funds from the girls themselves. I think the funding should be split on what you need it for and who it's going to benefit. I don't think it should matter whether you're a society or whether you're a sports team. I think it should be looked over like they do in the activities exec. They debate about it and then they see sort of how much funding each team needs, because teams and societies are going to need different amounts of funding.
Okay, that's it, thank you. Right, we've only got time for 2 more questions, so we've got gentleman over there and then Simon Clark. Hand.
Hi candidates, great speeches by the way. My question's chiefly to Emily Pollitt. You mentioned in your manifesto and your speech about Activities Council, you mentioned that you'd like to change it and you'd like to make it meet more regularly. My question to you is, as CCO Activities, it seems that you've had that chance. As far as I'm aware, the CCO Activities chairs the meeting and calls for it, and you haven't done it. So my question is, why and what actually have you done as CCO Activities?
Okay, right, that candidate, just for Emily then, you've got 1 minute.
Yeah, that's fine. I've actually been discussing with Liz in the role about whether to call an Activities Council. We've just changed the bylaw actually, which says that it doesn't have to meet every term, which personally is something that I would change back if I got the chance to. I think it is important to call them. We haven't, because we've had a Roses meeting, we were discussing the effectiveness of whether it would be important to bring societies and sports teams to Activities Council or have a separate one regarding Roses. As CCO Activities, I've been working with Liz, I've been to York to start planning Roses, I've been emailing societies and sports teams to let them know that I am there as well for things that they can talk to me about if they don't feel like they should go straight to Liz. And I'm currently compiling a newsletter to send out about events that are going on with sports teams and societies.
10 seconds.
To send out, and that should be going out sometime next week, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. Simon Clark then for final question.
Right. This is a question to Ellie. In both your hust and manifesto, you've alluded heavily to your JCR experience. I'd just like to get how you feel you can fulfil this role, especially with the 50th Roses, given that when you were FILE president last year, in my opinion, your reliability wavered as the year went on, and communication was poor when there was any at all. And this all accumulated in your resignation, and myself and the other vice president having to organise your Freshers' Week in the space of 3 weeks before it actually started. So, bearing that in mind, how can you enforce yourself as a strong candidate in this role and will be able to organise and run a successful Roses?
Yeah, that's fine. As I was president, you make a point, and the communication wasn't great. I don't feel that I was quite right in that position. I feel that when I decided to step down, I wasn't actually going to be able to be back in Lancaster for Freshers' Week, so I felt that it was best for the students that there was no point in me being president if I couldn't be there. Turned out I was being able to be there. But I think that with this being it will be a full-time job and it will be something, and it's more what I am passionate about. Like, I am passionate about sports, I'm passionate about societies, passionate about events. whereas sort of the presidency position, it just seemed wasn't for me. I went for it, I tried it, and it just wasn't something that I was
10
right
seconds.
for, which is sort of why I'm running for this position, as I think it's better suited to me than the likes of LUSU president.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, that wraps up the questions for VP activities. A round of applause for all candidates, please.